Hi, folks. Larry Rolla here. I got my two pals on here. Let me bring them right on. Freddy Hudson and Michael. I can't say his last name.
I don't know it either. You can't screw the A up, Larry. I know that much.
I know it, but I can't say it. I can't. I get tongue-tied. Anyway, Freddie, when we have Freddie's show on? It's an audio show, and do you want to play that right from the get go, and then we'll branch off of that, or how do you want to do it?
Yeah, well, I'll talk about it first. We have on this week's show we have Art Gray. He's a former presiding judge, and Art Gray he testified at the Charlie May trial. And he basically gave his opinion. He's going to talk a little bit about that. He's going to talk a little bit about HISA. He's going to talk about John Wagner's situation and several other things in there that he's going to be talking about. And he basically, him and Chris McCarran invented this safety bit thing, whatever, which connects our lines to the bit in case the line breaks, which never really went anyplace. They did that years ago. And he talks a little bit about that. But we can talk about a few other things before we start. Like, there's a lot going on in the racing world right now. We have, that Delta Downs was just raided, by ICE, and they took away 80 some odd employees. So that's, if they're going to continue that with racetracks and training centers, that's going to affect harness racing and thoroughbred racing. And I don't know what the immigration status is or what the employee numbers are, but most, from what I hear, most of the employees now are Hispanic. And so if they're targeting racetracks, this could be devastating to horse racing. I mean, you may not have enough rooms to conduct their training, have your stable train. Mike, your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I want to bring it back to the positive. We'll talk about the Belmont, which was at Saratoga. And I thought that was a great day of racing. And then we could talk about the North America Cup, which just concluded at Woodbine, and they did quite well. And there was a lot of interest in those cards, and they had great races with Burke and Ronnie Wren winning the North America Cup. And then we could also talk about some of the stuff that's coming up in Kentucky. And so a lot of the Meadowlands big races are coming up. So we'll talk about all that.
Okay.
Freddie, I got a question. Just explain what the Charlie May rule is, because that's
the Charlie May rule is that the judges are required to talk to the drivers, and the New Jersey Racing Commission is not following through with that rule.
Well, when did that end? I've been out of the business for a while, but when did that end?
It ended many years ago. I know.
They just watch a race, and if something happens, they don't call the driver in to say.
They don't talk to the drivers anymore. And the statement that was made was that why talk to them? They're going to lie anyhow. And Johnny Campbell got involved with that a few years back, and he just sort of shrugged his shoulders on it. But first of all, they should be talking to the drivers.
It's really unbelievable how. I said this from years and years back that whole front side, the whole front side is one political abortion. They ruin the business, and I said this Tuesday on the show. They ruined the business long before drugs came into the picture. Drugs came into the picture in the mid 70s, full strength. Right in the 80s when Epigen started, then they got the company to put a tracer in that, and then they come up with a synthesizer. They start synthesizing all of the drugs that they had tests for, and that put another nail in a coffin. But long before that, the political appointees that are appointed to these positions, they're the ones that just took everything for granted. They thought that 20, 30,000 people were going to show up every single night, no matter what they did. And they did absolutely nothing. I witnessed it firsthand, and I was very friendly with some of the judges, and it was just unbelievable that they can have an incident in a race, and just somebody that never been on a racetrack, never sat behind a horse, never been in a horse race, and probably some of them that got the job never been to a racetrack before, how they could just make a decision that affects a lot of people. It affects the owner, it affects the trainer, it could affect the trainer in big ways. He can get a fine, suspensions, everything. And they don't even want to talk to it. Their answer, according to you, Freddie, is that the drivers will only lie. What a bunch of fucking morons! I'll tell you. The more I hear, the more it's just.
Well, Art addresses some of that in like the fight that he's had with the racing commissions over the rulings and stuff, and he addresses a lot of what we're talking about right there, and it's the commissions are more the problem than the judges. I'm trying to come up with the correct words to word it, but the commissions they're incompetent. They're just there to pick up their paychecks. So
I don't think in this case. Let me just say something. This race was 4 years ago, and
right.
I believe it was July of 2021. That was the year where COVID kind of screwed up the schedule a little bit. The Meadowlands Pace was actually before the North America Cup that particular year. So that particular horse, not the winner, the horse that was rough gated on the turn in the Meadowlands Pace was, or should have been,
Southwind Gentry.
Should have been a well-documented problem horse. Several weeks before the Meadowlands Pace, he did the exact same thing in the Pennsylvania Sire Stakes, and impeded, in my opinion, the horse on the inside, which was Rocky Road Hanover.
Right.
They didn't call the inquiry on Southwind Gentry. They called the inquiry on Rocky Road Hanover and actually disqualified him. If you watch the replay, it's. I don't think that's what happened.
One of my old owners owned Rocky Road Hanover, and he owned the Buckabed Hanover, and he was in both races. And yeah, they actually had Rocky Road Hanover in the winner's circle, and had flashed his name up before they disqualified him.
Yeah,
something you've never heard of and never seen before.
I thought it was a bad DQ, and then if you knew the horse was a bad actor, he should have been the focus of that, and he absolutely was not. Now, you could come up with your own reason why that is, but the fact that that inquiry didn't start with Southwind Gentry is why it just came off the rails as quickly as it did. And if you go down to the season, I think the horse did the exact same thing, and the Hempt came first over and rough gated on the turn. I think in a North America Cup, he fell back on the turn. He was in the back of the pack, and then he did it once more. I mean, it was the horse's trait, because when he was parked out, he had a great amount of difficulty being gated properly. He was always rough gated. Now, if you raced him along the rail, and to this day, he's kind of like the same horse because he's still racing. He was much more fluid along the rail, but if you parked him out, especially going a decent amount of speed, he'd always bobble and rough gate, and it was documented. And Canada has the AGCO, where if that would have happened in Canada, the judges would have wrote about it, saying, so if this were sport were regularly like a top sport, that would have been on the report, and those judges in New Jersey would have seen that, and I think they would have started their inquiry with him. That's not what happened. But let me talk about the judge is an excellent judge.
Oh yeah, Peter's a great guy. I like Peter, so don't get
When
me
you
wrong.
start, let me give you a good analogy. In the Breeders' Cup, many years ago, there was a horse on the distaff. I think it was Todd Pletcher's horse, and the race was on ESPN, and the guys on ESPN said something's wrong with this horse. This horse looks lethargic, or something's the matter with him. Well, they didn't scratch the horse, and the horse got beat 100 lengths, and he was one of the favorites. And of course, everybody wanted the steward's head, and they got it. And the steward that they got was a guy named John Veach, who was probably one of the best judges in thoroughbred racing. But his crime in this case was not listening to ESPN. And of course, when you're the judge's booth, you're looking at all kinds of things. And that was a case where maybe better communication, just like ours. But I think if that inquiry would have started with Southwind Gentry like it should have, they would have come up with the correct conclusion. But
right, even I watched the Fox broadcast of that race, and the Fox, and it was Dave Bauer and Dave Little. They both said, well, the judges have an inquiry here, and they're going to have to figure out who caused this, Southwind Gentry or Charlie May.
It's funny you mentioned that, Freddie, because I watched it today, and not once did they mention Southwind Gentry.
Yep. Well, did you watch the Fox broadcast?
No, I watched the live replay.
Okay, but if you watch the live replay that Fox put up there, which is the one that was televised with Dave Bauer and Dave Little, they basically have a discussion about Southwind Gentry and Charlie May as to who caused the inquiry.
Well, in the live feed, they said there was a problem with like 4 horses, and not one of them was Southwind Gentry. But this is sports, right? I mean, there's that famous perfect game. The guy Galarraga pitched in Detroit, and the poor ump at first base blew the call in the 27th out. This kind of stuff happens. So,
the case is still ongoing. It's not resolved.
Freddie, what state did
New Jersey
instruct, and only in New Jersey?
Well, now say that again. No, the Meadowlands case was in New Jersey.
Was the race
other race that Michael's talking about was in Pennsylvania?
No, I'm talking about the Charlie May rule. Is it only in New Jersey?
I think it was taken up by the Racing Commissioners International or whatever, and they put the Charlie May rule in a meeting that they had. I think it involved all the judges and stuff like that when they put the Charlie May rule in.
So that means even if a judge, and I'm sure I shouldn't have said every judge, but there's a lot of competent judges too. So if you happen to get a competent judge that knows what the hell he's doing, if he wants to call a driver or a jockey in because there was interference and he wants to get both sides of the story, he can't do it because the commission.
The thoroughbreds do it. The thoroughbreds call the jockeys in. Harness racing doesn't.
Unbelievable.
Now I know in Illinois the stewards do want the testimony of the drivers. So
I know. Hey, Larry, how many times have you been called in?
I've been called in a lot, and it's the right thing to do.
We all have been. You race a horse, they call you in and say, "What did you see?" And then you tell them.
Well, unbelievable.
Plus, you have the pressure of being on national television. It's like it happened in the Derby with maximum security, right? They call the inquiry on maximum security after the fact, and then you're on television. It's not like they hurried the decision. They absolutely did not, because the telecast, Mr. Gorell had enough pull to extend the telecast to past its 11 o'clock time to stay with the telecast. But it's just one of those unfortunate things that you're going to talk about. You're gonna talk about Charlie May the same way you talk about that Galarraga perfect game that never was. It's just it's what it is.
But Larry, if you want to start the video now, go for it. course, a lot of what we're talking about is in the video. The other thing I'm going to say, Michael, is Art does talk about the USTA in here on the recent rule, on the recent crackdown in the undisclosed ownership or transfer of ownership stuff. He does talk about that in here.
I will be listening.
Very, very interesting.
And we'll come on afterwards.
So I'm gonna play it, and whenever you guys want me to stop it, I can stop it, and then we can continue from that point on.
Yeah, take us off the video, and then we'll come on as soon as it's over.
Well,
no, it's only audio, and he's got the.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
So,
the audio.
We can just sit here and look at each other cutely.
Yeah,
it's hard to look stupider than this. I'm just letting you know.
Tell me whenever you want to stop, or I'll stop it if I have a question or something or a comment. Okay, here goes.
Welcome to the Harness Racing Alumni Show. I'm Freddy Hudson, and I'm here today with Trade Martin and Bob Marks. Joining us today as our special guest is former presiding judge Art Gray. Art, welcome to the Harness Racing Alumni Show.
Thank you, Freddie. Thank you, gentlemen.
Art, as a retired judge, what are you up to these days?
Well, I've been retired 10 years, and I get phone calls from horsemen that have concerns about, things they're unhappy with the commissions in the individual racing jurisdictions. Unfortunately, there are some issues out there, but the horsemen, they don't want to step up to the plate. They're concerned about, losing their livelihood if they say something. And what they're asking me to do is follow up on some of the articles that I've written in the past. And, they feel that with my experience and, in the articles that I have written, that if I followed through and I did the same, that I could help them out. But, anything that I've written in the past has always been, corroborated. And, I can't just start, writing articles and saying things that, that are not backed up, not supported.
Yeah. Hey, Art, last week we had on as our guest Don Tiger, the owner of Charlie May. Now, you testified at that trial. What can you tell us as to what you saw in the trial and that whole ruling?
Well, I did not address whether there was interference or not. Don contacted me. I had written articles about officials and the procedures in the stand, and that it was important for the presiding judge and the associate judges to hear what the drivers had to say about a particular situation on the racetrack. The judges in New Jersey, and I won't. It comes from the commission. It's their policy. They didn't talk to the drivers. It's not. They normally they don't talk to the drivers. They just look at the film and they make a decision. But I had 30 years in the stand, and it doesn't happen often. But there are times where a driver has said to me, well, I caught a wheel, I caught a hook, there was a piece of broken equipment that created the situation. And on the second look, after the information I had from the driver, it turned out that it wasn't as it appeared on the film. So the judges that I've trained over the years, and I've always made a point to talk to the drivers involved, even if the situation to talk to the drivers that are right behind the situation. But I think it's important to get all the information you have. The judges, if they have the experience and they know what they're doing, you can ask questions. And like if you have a driver's getting the wheel underneath, and he gets real close, and whether he hits him or not, is up in the air. But the driver takes back, and the driver that's come bearing in ends up getting a seat. If the driver that gives up the hole, if he wanted the 2-hole, he caused the situation. He was given a disadvantage. And if you talk to the driver, he's going to say, well, it didn't really bother me. I came back first over. But you ask questions, say, well, he had a wheel under you. And, did he hit you? He'll say no. He said, well, were you concerned about getting hit? Did you take back? And if he says yes, I said, well, then it did. It altered your performance. And that's not where you want it to be. And that's interference. And, if you use the film and ask the questions, you'll get down to what happened on the racetrack, and you can act accordingly. And if you don't talk to the drivers, I just don't understand why, you can make decisions based just on looking at the film.
Didn't they come up with the Charlie May rule after that trial, basically where the judges would have to talk to the drivers? And are they participating in that? Or are they following that rule?
Well, no, the judge agreed that what the appeal was filed under was that there was no due process, that the presiding judge and the judge didn't have all the information necessary to make a decision, and that is what the winning appeal was based on. But New Jersey didn't follow through that on changing the procedure, but that there was a judges conference where it was discussed a Charlie May rule, that there should be a rule that the drivers should be talked to. How extensive that change has gone through, I couldn't tell you, but I hope every state should have that.
Have you been following any of the recent rulings on from the USTA lately?
Yes, they have. They're making some good progress. The USTA has taken on a stance that HISA is basically focusing on the thoroughbreds, right. And their rules, their rules don't fit harness racing. The situation with Jack Wagner and where they followed what they did, they followed the money, and they found you can find where ownerships are changed to circumvent penalties, and it's something that the USDA can do. They have it in their rules, and it's easy to follow the money, and that's what they did with Jack Wagner. Years ago, I don't know, going back 20 years, I've been retired 10 years, and going back 10 years or more before that, I attempted to do the same with situations, and I was shot down by the commission. Said, "Well, we're not going to get into this." And it's a situation where here's a rule that they have, and the commission is not following through on it. I couldn't tell you why, but it's something that has been neglected, and now the USDA is taking a stance on this. And it's not that the USDA is trying to replace the commissions. With the USDA, they have powers and actions that they can take that complement what the commissions are doing or what they're supposed to be doing.
Yep. Hold on 1 second. Hey, Art, now you brought up HISA. Now, many people probably don't know that you actually lobbied on the Senate side with me back in, I guess it was 2020. Yeah, 2020. We attended about 6 or 8 Senate offices.
Yes, we did. We went down there with and Chris McCarron is something that I've worked on.
Chris McCarron was there. Alan Gutterman. Whatchamacallit? Joe DeFrancis. and several other people, and Dan Kazmaier, we all lobbied over there for, I guess it was 6 or 8 offices, I don't remember. How do you see? Now that was way before HISA was law. It was before the indictments, before the arrests. How do you see HISA doing right now?
Well, as far as harnesses, they're not doing anything for us.
No, nothing for harness, only thoroughbreds. Right,
and the USTA has realized this, and they're taking a stance and going forward to address issues in harness racing. But HISA has not. The thoroughbreds in general are not happy with what's going on, with HISA, with the with the jockeys and the number of times that they're going to the whip and the stretch, and then and placings, and they feel that there's a long way to go before that this is where it needs to be, so that it effectively can regulate thoroughbred racing.
Correct, and I don't see HISA coming into harness racing for probably another 2 years at the earliest, from what I can see. And the other thing I'm going to ask you, what do you think of our recent track closings? We've lost Cal Expo, we've lost Freehold, Pompano. What's your read on that?
Well, unfortunately, we're losing racetracks through attrition. And a perfect example is what's going on with the fairgrounds in New Orleans. And New Orleans had, it's one of the fairgrounds, one of the top thoroughbred racetracks. And the politicians are passing a rule, looks like it's going to pass, that allows slot machines in gas stations. We lose again?
No, we're still going.
No, they're allowing the expansion of slot machines outside of the racetrack. And Churchill Downs, that owns the fairgrounds, they went through the numbers, and they said that this isn't going to work. And they've gone to the point where they have requested to resign from there, to give up their license to race in Louisiana, in New Orleans. And unfortunately, that is that is what the future is. On the thoroughbred side, I talked to some of the thoroughbred colleagues. They're talking about the racetracks that may be left. Might be Hot Springs, Santa Anita is up in the air with what Roanox have planned for the future. It looks like Gulfstream is history. It's not good, and there isn't anything we can do to stop it. I don't think the legislature, if there's another way for the states to bring in more revenue, I think that's going to supersede the needs of the horsemen. Right now, there were hearings in Ohio just the last week or so about some of the legislation in there, and the president of the Horsemen's Association testified before the legislature about the income, the hundreds of thousands of dollars that harness racing brings to the surrounding community, to various different jobs. And we'll have to see what happens in Ohio, but I don't think it's going to be good down the road.
Yeah. Everyone basically looks at Kentucky as being our most successful state right now for racing, and they seem to have put the program together with the historic racing slots that seems to be covering the purses. The purses are fantastic. The handles are off. I don't see any really solid handles in our sport except for over at the Meadowlands and maybe Woodbine. Do you see the same thing?
Yes, Kentucky's doing very well. As a matter of fact, I was talking to Ray Schnitker a while back, and he had said that if he was a young man, that's where he'd be. He'd set up his operation, his racing operation in Kentucky. Indiana is also is doing well with their this Sire Stakes program and what they're doing at the racetrack.
Okay, and Ohio is doing well, and that seems to be the core of our business right now. New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, I don't see them doing as well as they used to.
Well, no, without the slots, maybe except for Belmont and Saratoga and Yonkers, even Yonkers, without the slot machines, racing's a no-go. That's what the politicians are, constantly saying, that if the racing business can't sustain itself, the welfare that the slot machines provide, the money could be going elsewhere.
Yeah. Hey, Art, my last question for you. Now, you had developed with Chris McCarron, I believe, some type of safety line. What is the status on that?
Well, that is definitely a long story. I mean, Chris McCarron and I first spoke to at the racing symposium in Arizona back in 2002, and well, for those that aren't aware, basically what it has, there's a second attachment at the bit that extends just a half inch beyond the main loop, and that if the buckle gives, or that if the rein breaks, the line breaks, that there's that secondary attachment where the driver or the jockey is still able to maintain control of the horse. Billy O'Donnell worked hard and got a rule that's on the books in Ontario that the safety reins and safety lines are required, but unfortunately the commission, as with a lot of commissions and on various rules, they're not applying the rule. The rule's there, but no one's checking whether the safety lines are being used, and they're kind of frustrated up there, the horsemen that were fighting for it. But it's something that it's a sign of where the things that are wrong, with our business. I mean, here's something back 20 years ago that was like a $3.50 improvement and easy to incorporate into a driving line. Now, maybe after 20 years, maybe it might be $10 between nylon and the hook. But after, like Stan Bergstein wrote an article that I've traveled 10,000 miles and spoken as many words on this simple safety issue, safety improvement that could prevent one of the most dangerous or one of the most feared calls that a spouse can have, if the driver is killed in the course of a race because of the situation. And it's still there's a horseman they don't like the commissions telling them what to do. The commissions aren't going ahead and do anything unless there's 100% support behind it. If there's anyone that has a question about it, it gets dragged out. More testing. I mean, even now, the Thoroughbreds, the HISA Safety Committee, they took the reins and they changed the format altogether, where they just, I believe and others believe that they just created another situation where the rein can weaken and break. So I have somewhat, after 22 years, I've given up. I've given up on it.
Okay, hey, Art, what happens now if the bit itself breaks?
Oh, with the bit, what I have, there's an attachment. I have like a small rubber-coated snaffle that will attach. That you can, put the loop in, attached to the snaffle. Where if the bit breaks, the driver still has complete control from the right hand to the left hand with the lines. The other thing that trainers were doing was using a tongue tie, but just not wrapping the tongue tie, around the horse's tongue, just using the tongue tie to attach the two loops.
Okay. Well, that's it for me. Bob, did you have anything in here?
No, I think we've covered everything. Yeah, about the only thing which I still question about HISA, is the whip rule. Because basically, I would think that the main object is to win the race. And basically, yeah, you've hit him 6 times, or wait a minute, if that one more time will get it done. In other words, you can't. To me, that's absurd.
Well, the other thing with the whip rule is that there's times where the jocks need to go to the snapper to control the horse to stop from lugging in or lugging out. So it's also a safety issue.
Yeah.
But Peter, the politics is getting in there, and they have to satisfy listening to Peter.
Yeah. All right. With that, I'm going to close the show out. Art,
okay,
don't
Larry,
go away.
you can shut it down.
And thank you so much for joining us today.
Okay, well that's good. He was a good guest, Art Gray. He was good. There's only one thing I didn't. He made a lot of sense through the whole thing. The only thing I really didn't get was that line, because the I can understand why it wouldn't go, but I really didn't understand too much how he explained it. And probably if he was on, I would ask him, because the only way the idea of that is that if a buckle breaks, or if the line breaks just before the second line, which is attached to the main line a couple of inches back from the buckle. But what if the line breaks in the middle? What if the line breaks after that? That's the first thing. The second thing is, what happens if the bit breaks? And,
Well,
and
that was my question in there, because I've had a bit break on me, so that's why I was asking that question.
yeah, well, there's really no answer for it. The only answer is that every horse should race with a mini bit.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Yeah, the mini bit's not going to bother the horse, and it's a safety factor. Where Mario, we showed the race where he was lucky he didn't get himself killed. The bit broke, and I have a picture of the bit, and it snapped right in half. And it was one of them. It was one of them sidelining bits, one of them straight sidelining bits. That's it's a thick bit. It's not like probably the weakest bit is a snaffle bit with the connection right in the middle, and they just keep using these things year after year after year after year. And but I guess they're made out of good stuff, because very few of them break, but only one has to break, and you're in serious trouble. But that's probably why the line, the double line didn't go over too well. And he should have promoted it more with the standardbreds rather than the thoroughbreds, because the thoroughbreds just don't take a hole like standardbreds do. And if there's a 10-horse field in standardbreds, every guy got a real good hold on their horse. With the thoroughbreds, that's not the case. So they should have marketed that thing more for standardbreds, and figured out if a trainer, that's the first thing I would have said. What if the bit breaks? And what if the line breaks after the second line, where the second line is attached? Then what's this? So anyway, that was it. But he was a good guest. He everything he said made a lot of sense, and he had the same concerns I had with the Charlie May rule. So he was a good guy. I know he was going to come on tonight, and I know he had a family an issue, so he couldn't come on. But he was a good guest, sharp guy, probably one of the best judges out there. So
we'll get him on another time.
All right.
He's a pretty good guy. I talk to him regular.
And like you know, like I said, like in there, like when we were in Washington D.C., Art came in. Let me just see from the Standardbred side. Art came in, Danny Kazmaier came in, and we lobbied over there for the HISA bill, and we were with the Jockey Club, which was Jim Gagliano, Joe DeFrancis, and Alan Gutterman was there, and so and several others. And so we covered, I would say, six to eight Senate offices, and we had a pretty good day there. So.
I just want you to know that we have 670 comments. So as we're talking, I'm going to go through them. And if they have any questions, I'll just pop them on, because between you two brainy guys that know everything.
I wouldn't call me brainy, but
no, you're pretty sharp.
We can pretend.
Michael, you don't have to pretend. So I think there's one right here. Oh yeah, here's okay. All right, what do you want to talk about? Go ahead, Michael.
I would have loved to have asked the judge how he would judge the sport today when some of these guys drive these horses with their handholds in their laps. Because it's fairly obvious that they don't have the control over some of these horses that some of their predecessors did, and that's the reason for some of the things that happen. Because those older guys, like you guys, you knew that you sat up in the bike because at any point you might have to stop one. These guys today, that never enters into the equation. That's why when you have a horse that rough gates or breaks and scatters, they have a little extra reaction time because of where their handholds are.
I agree 100%.
I agree 100%. But they're just lucky that the breed improved to the point where these things, as yearlings, they're pacing quarters in 30 seconds free-legged in the fields, where before, I never forget, I had a yearling in 1960, and I had to go to Billy Meyer. And I asked Billy Meyer, I says, Billy, I had the hobbles on this thing every day for a month and a half. He's burnt. The skin is off. He's almost down to the bones. And I said, he just won't pace, and he won't trot. And Billy says, just keep the hobbles on him. He'll get there. And sure enough, about 2 or 3 days later, he started pacing and everything else. But today, these guys don't have that problem. Today, they go, I think the average size hobble back when we were racing was 55 inches, 56. Today, it's probably 65. So half of them probably don't even need the hobbles. And you see them, the hobbles swinging on a lot of these things where they're so long they don't even need them. They just get in the way. But these kids today, if they were driving the same way 40 years ago, they'd be a lot of wrecks.
They'd be dead.
They'd be in a lot of
these
trouble.
horses our horses would have fallen down.
Yeah,
but
that's
I have a good Larry. I have a good Billy Meyer story. Many years ago, I had a pacer. I'm going to repeat this: a pacer that I come back and he's hitting his hock. He's hitting his left hock some way. I can't see it. No matter what I do, I can't see it. But every time I come back, like there's just the blood's coming from the hock. He's hitting it. So I talk with Billy. I said, Billy, here's what's going on. And Billy thinks for a second. And he goes, well, he says, like 30 years ago, Eddie and myself had a horse do the same thing. And here's what we did with him. We put side weight shoes on him, some brace bandages. And so I forget what he told me to do up front. I'm talking about something this took place in the 70s. And so I rigged the horse up the way that Billy had told me to. I go out and I train him. Come back, there's no blood on the hock. I go out there and I train him the fast mile. Come back, there's no blood on the hock. Put him in a race. Come back, there's blood on the hock. So for the next race, I said, okay, I got everything straightened out here. So I have the brace bandages on the back, the side weight shoes on the back. On the hock that he's hitting, I put a bell boot on upside down to cover the hock. And that solved the problem. I won a couple races with him after that.
Very good, Freddie. Michael, there's a question here for you. Here, let me put it up.
I didn't do it.
I told him that. He says, Michael, don't you think harness racing should utilize NBA star, whatever his name is, Joe,
Yes.
as the
Yes.
person, as he loves racing and best friends with Tim Teacher?
I think he's a fairly quiet guy. So I think at some point I would love to think that he would be a spokesperson, but he's a very, very quiet guy.
Okay.
I don't think he's looking for the limelight. I think he's looking for the quietest life he can get.
Now, how do you figure this? John Higgins says, hi, Larry. Yonkers Trot, 300,000, 5 horses in the box. Unbelievable. It sounds like we're beating a dead horse.
I can answer that question. Trainers don't like racing on a half-mile track nowadays.
For 300,000?
They don't. They keep the good horses away.
Wow. Wowee.
Michael, do you agree with that?
There's so many choices for the trainer and the owner compared to when you guys were doing it, just between the Grand Circuit and the Sire Stakes, and you could plot a much different course. I'd say 30, 40 years ago, the Yonkers Trot was on everybody's calendar. Now it's not. And let me just say this. I mean, New York, and New York's probably got as great a history in harness racing as anyone. You cannot be racing 6 tracks at the same time. Can we have a semblance here that and you've got the Zwei coming up, next week or the week after that, and you've got all these races at the Meadowlands, and let's just intersperse the Sire Stakes in 3, 4, 6 states. I mean, you've got so many events that, of course, and you're seeing this in the thoroughbreds as well, where you've got very, very short fields in some of their prominent races. So yes, there's just too much racing.
All right. Sundance wrote, she called me up and she insists that I tell you guys about this. And here's the first thing she said. Larry, the lady I told you about in New Zealand, her name is Crystal Hackett. At Alexandria Park, her horse spooked and she came out of the bike and got dragged through the infield. She has done this more than once. Andrea Park or Park in New Zealand. Eddie, hope you're feeling better. Okay, Sundance, I delivered your message. Well, Ronnie Pierce did something like that right at the Meadowlands. He wouldn't let go. He got dragged all through around by the paddock.
Sure.
Okay, let's see. Any more questions for? Okay. All right. Go ahead, Michael. Continue what you were talking about.
I wanted to come back to something about the driving styles, and it's not enough that the drivers are going to create more speed, trying to create the most speed possible when the drivers of the Dancer Houghton era knew they had to be in a position to stop a horse, so they sat upright in the bike. Add to that how fast these horses are going compared to when you guys were driving. And then there's this other thing that doesn't really get discussed except for the bettors, and the bettors notice this. You've got people that when you guys drove, how far off, when you were on the lead, fellas, how far off the rail were you?
A few inches, a foot at the most.
You've got guys in Grand Circuit races that race up the backside in the 4 and 5 path. They think this is like the Grand Prix of Monaco. And the reason they're doing that is because they're trying to create an angle where, just like a Formula One racer, you cut the angle of that turn unfortunately, you've got 8 or 9 other drivers that have no idea when you're going to make that turn. And there was a lot of confusion. And this happened a lot last year when we were having these accidents, and they were all happening going into the last turn. So I believe there's a rule in the USTA that you're not supposed to race more than 4 feet removed off the rail. I wish some of the regulators would take a look at this, because this would create, I think, a safer sport this summer. But if you're going to have these guys with their handholds in their laps racing the horses on the lead up the backstretch in the 3 and 4 and 5 path, I fear that this is not going to be the safest summer.
Well, you know one thing. I know one thing for sure, and you're right. We didn't do that too much. I remember way back when Billy Meyer used to pull that stuff. He was in front or even in a hole. In the hole, he'd be half in and half out.
Half in, half out.
Yeah, he'd have everybody behind him confused, and if you try to go around him, he would finish pulling out
3 wide.
3 wide. But when that happens, normally, if you say you're sitting in a 2-hole, you got your horse's nose right on the guy's helmet, and you just follow him around. You have no choice, because even though he may be in the 3 path, when the turn comes up, when he and you try to come in between him and the rail, you know what's going to happen. He's going to come right down and chop you up, and you're going to be at fault. So that would be interesting. That would be an interesting call if something like that happened. I'd love for the judges to handle that one. Guy in front, he's in the 3 path going down the backstretch. The guy sitting behind him in the 2-hole, he's the favorite. There's the 1 and 2 path that are completely open, and he says, and he goes right through it, and as soon as he makes that move right through it, the guy cutting it comes back in, chops him down, and the horse makes a break, and that's what would happen. And the guy who chopped him down would probably not get in trouble, I don't think.
Well, you're going for so much money now, and it's a moment's decision, right? Where I've asked 4 Hall of Fame drivers, and I'll tell them the same thing. One of the first things they teach you when you drive is you don't pass on the left. You just don't do it. So, but there's going to be a point where a race goes for $500,000 for $1 million, and the guy in the lead is up the backside, the 4 path, and the guy in the 2-hole just comes right down inside, knowing that that's a really advantageous thing to do. And what are the judges going to do when he does that?
I don't think there's nothing they could do, but if you do it, you better do it real quick. I mean, that horse better do it real quick, because
the easier solution is to enforce the rule.
Right.
You shouldn't race more than 4 feet off the rail. And I think the sport would be better, because anything that will slow the racing down the turn, that'll help the closers. As we're finding out, the sport's too predictable, even at the top level. So anything that can make the sport less predictable, get the closers into the game, I think is helpful.
I agree.
Jeffrey B. has a question for Michael, one that he can't answer, I'm sure. How the hell do you save harness racing in New York State?
I think you need
move it to Kentucky.
No, I think you've got amazing resources in most of the tracks. I just think let's take 2 states similar, right? New York and Ohio. So what does Ohio do? Ohio races Northfield as their bellwether track. They're going to race all year, let's say 4 days a week, but they're going to race all year. Now, the other 3 tracks are going to create their own circuit between Scioto, Miami Valley, and Dayton, and they will share a 12-month circuit with each of them going 4 months. I think something like that could really work in New York, and anything that would lessen the races, that could increase the purses. We have to increase these purses. Now, that's just my opinion. Horsemen hate to hear that, less racing, but with the money that is being spent on yearlings, you have to go for substantially more money with young horses if you're going to drive these yearling sales. So I just think there's too much racing in New York. But again, New York has a storied history in this sport, and there's it would be great to see New York do better.
All right, David Arthur says, good point, Michael. I don't understand how they're allowed to drive laying down. Now, I've been out of the game a long time, but somebody told me, and I forget who it was, the reason they do what they do and the handholds are so far back, there's a couple of reasons. One is natural for wind resistance. That's the first thing. And the second thing is the reason the handholds are too far back was there's a rule, I don't know if it's nationwide or just at the Meadowlands, where you can't take your hands out of the handholds to whip a horse. So they have the handholds all the way back, and they can have their hands in the handholds and whip the horse however they want with the hands in the handholds without taking them out. So that's the excuses. That's the reasons they gave me. I guess it makes sense, but if you sat straight
I'm going to jump in here, Larry. I've tried using the lines to whip a horse. It has zero effect.
Well, they have the handholds. They're lucky today because these things are so well gated. They have the handholds. They have the lines dangling, and they can whip like they don't even have a handhold in their hand because the lines are so loose. So I guess I don't know. The last.
Larry, all the stuff you and Freddie are talking about, this was discussed in 1992 when we had a plethora of new bikes that were changing the sport. The Cheetah was the bike where the desired effect was to lay down in the bike because it created some different aerodynamics. And by 1993, they started asking around, and I think the people they wanted to hear most from were John Campbell and Dave McGee, and I think there were other drivers. And they decided to ban the Cheetah. And the reason was, if everybody laid down in a 10-horse field at the Meadowlands, every horse would be another 5 feet back. That's 50 feet.
Right.
So you're taking these horses that are in the back out of the equation. If speed's going to be better and then they're going to be 5 lengths farther back, how does that work? It doesn't. Well, that was initially discussed in 1993, and that discussion continues today. The drivers should not be allowed to lay back because you're creating an enormous advantage against the field. There's nothing the field can do. So, this is stuff that needs to be discussed again, I believe, because it comes under the code of what's good for the sport.
I agree with you 100%.
I mean, how is it good for the sport for the horses sitting last, the Meadowlands, to be 18 lengths behind the leader?
How about the same thing at Yonkers, a half-mile track?
Certainly.
Yeah, the last horse is in the beginning of the turn, and the first horse is at the end of the turn.
And I think the last time on your show, Larry, we discussed this, that those drivers are convinced. They're convinced when Joe Rico was on that they cannot pull early on the first and second turn. They have to save themselves, or else they're convinced that they can't have any success.
Yeah, and I know nowadays, like, they go that third quarter, they fly, where we were saving it for the last quarter.
Yeah, you need to create something that and now I think I read it somewhere where they were doing something like a quick start at Yonkers, and now they decided against doing it. So now they're going to start at the actual start pole, which is near the first turn. So the horse up front are going to have an even larger advantage. So they're going to have to come up with something very creative at Yonkers. Listen, I mean, everybody that's my age grew up with Yonkers and Roosevelt, and horses used to close all the time. And they have to find a way so that when races go fast early, they close, because that's how you can create big payoffs. And even with the 8 horses, create a bigger handle.
Yeah, 100%.
There's nothing wrong with half mile racing. I mean, although at this point, Northfield seems to be the half mile track that most bettors prefer. And I can give you 2 enormous reasons for that. Number one, they have a 9th horse most of the time. And the 9th horse not only creates an extra entry for people that are wagering, but it also creates a little bit of a reason for the horses that are leaving towards the front to continue towards the front, because that hole might not be there with the trailing horse. And the second thing is the Northfield, the stretch is somewhere near the middle of the wires, somewhere near the middle of the stretch. Now, what does that do? It gives horses a longer run of the first turn, which was the intention of the quick start at Yonkers, and it gives you a shorter stretch, so you get a lot more action on the turn, and you get a lot more closing. So, from a bettor's perspective, Northfield is the absolute model as far as where the wire is, the 9th horse. I think if some tracks incorporated some of those things, they'd see business increase without a doubt.
So you believe that like Yonkers, the wire, I mean, when the gate opens, you're in the first turn already. And, well, I think they might have wider turns than Roosevelt did, because it just seemed that the stretch was a lot shorter than Roosevelt's stretch, yet the starting line was a lot closer to the turn. So I guess it has to be more of an oval than Roosevelt was. I believe. I'm trying to think back.
I think
So
many,
am I.
I think many half mile tracks have experimented with the wire in different positions also.
What do you think about the passing lane? Good or bad?
I don't like it. I don't think there should be reward for not doing anything.
Yeah,
Now,
I don't like it either.
Now, before the removal of the hub rail, I thought it made sense because it made everything so much safer. I mean, the greatest invention harness racing ever had for safety was the removal of the hub rail, because all of a sudden, all those old accidents where everybody had nowhere to go, without a hub rail, everybody had somewhere to go. So a lot of those accidents got avoided. And now that that's happened, I think there's no reason to have an open stretch. Just you're trying to make the sport again. You're talking to a gambler. You're talking to a betting guy. So I'm interested in what makes the sport more popular from a betting standpoint. What makes half mile racing tremendous to me on nights where, sometimes when it's sloppy, speed tires, and all of a sudden the horses can close more easily because the track's tiring. If the speed tires on a half mile track on the last turn, those horses that are following in 2 and 3 hole got jammed up inside. And all of a sudden you can get those 5, 6, 7, 8 results coming from out of it. And this is what it would entice me to play a half mile track. If you told me Yonkers all of a sudden, where 3 or 4 times a night the speed would stop, it wasn't as prevalent, and horses could close from the back, I'd start playing there tomorrow. And I'm sure I could name 100 people who do the same thing. But what a betting guy doesn't want, and I'm not saying every betting guy is the same way, but you don't want something that's so predictable. I mean, there's nothing worse than horse paying $260, the exacta pays $390, the try pays $8. The losers are upset, the winners are upset. I mean, where are you going? So we need to have a less predictable sport, and everybody can have some dialogue on how to do that.
I agree.
We're talking about things that'll probably never change, because everything that you said about the race bikes. I remember I remember. In fact, I just put the last race I drove. I played it last night. It was at the Meadowlands. The last race I drove, and I was sitting right there. Right. I mean, the horse's ass was 1 foot away from me, and but the way it is today, you were right. There's now the driver sits 5 feet behind the horse, then he's leaning back. That's another 5 feet. So if there's 8 horses in a race, you're talking about from first to last is 60, 70 feet, 80 feet. And you're coming around the last turn. And that's probably why, and you educated me on this, Michael, that 40% of favorites win. They just make the top there, especially on a half-mile track. If you're not 1, 2, 3, it's suicide. And that's why somebody mentioned this. I don't know who it was. They said, and I kind of agree with it. You guys probably won't, but on a half-mile track, only because of the distance between the first and last horses is 80 feet longer than it used to be, and the stretch is so short. When you straighten out, instead of having 1 passing lane, have 2. So the 3-hole is not a death trap. Nobody wants to sit in the 3-hole. Everybody's giving up holes. Everybody doing whatever you have to do. And I'm sure that going to the half, if you wind up in the 3-hole, whoever driver is, he just says under his breath, "Fuck," like so it's either first over or get trapped in for life. Where if there was 2 passing lanes, it ain't a bad spot then, because whoever's second is going to either pull. You're going to have a passing lane at the head of the stretch, and if the 2-hole guy don't pull because there's probably the favorite or one of the first choices cutting it, so the 1, 2 stay the same, and you're in the 3-hole, you're a dead man. There's nowhere to go. But if there's the second passing lane, the whole race changes from the beginning, probably from the half on. If you had 2 passing lanes, where the guy sitting third, now the guy sitting fourth, normally if you're sitting third and there's somebody out there, you want to give 1 or 2 guys a hole. So you're not going to be first over. There's a good chance you get 2 of them out if you're sitting 4th or 5th. But if there's 2 passing lanes, you don't have to worry about that. Everybody would be wanting the 3-hole or the 2-hole. And I think in the middle of the last turn, and that's what I would do. If I had Yonkers racetrack, I would bank the turns another 2 or 3 degrees, have the turns banked pretty good, and at the top of the stretch, in the middle of the last turn, you'd probably have them 3 or 4 across the racetrack, and then as soon as the stretch comes, you'd probably have 6 or 7 right across the track. It'd be exciting. I would try that, but you'd have to bank the turns to give them the guys sitting 5th and 6th an even shot. Even though as soon as they straighten out, the field would instantly crush, because of the passing lanes. The 2 and the 3 will be out of the way. The 4 and the 5, there'll probably be 2 lanes going around, two tiers going around. I would try that. I think that would work. I'm probably the only one. So
you're not the only one, Larry. I mean, everybody's got a difference of opinion. That's all right. That's what makes everything cool.
Okay, let's see what this. My son is 27, and so is his hundreds of friends. They go to the casino. They never go to the racetrack and wait 20 minutes between races and get less than 2 minutes of action. Come on, man. Well, he's right. Let's see what this one says. Went to Yonkers with my girlfriend, asked her horses first, then slots. She said no, just slots. Well, I'm going to say this one more time. I don't think I ever said this in front of you, Michael, but tell me what you think of this. I mentioned this to John Campbell, and he didn't laugh in my face, but he just says, "No, that won't work." And here's what I would do. I would 2 races a night. I would market this for about 2 weeks first. Then I would say, okay, I would have 2 races a night that race for purse money, and have they race in jog carts with the bench seats, and and have and and have a drawing in the beginning of the night. There'll be eight guys, eight people, 8 teenagers that could sit in the jog cart with a driver and actually be in the race. And after the race, whoever wins, they get in the winner's circle. Each person that participates gets a film of the race. And I think participation with the young kids would bring the grandstands packed, because I know I really believe that. I really believe that all these kids would hey, look, if you built a roller coaster or a Ferris wheel in the middle of nowhere and say the rides are for free, you'd have 1,000 people there. 1,000 people. And the same thing, I know if they had one race a night, say at the Meadowlands, and they just hooked up to a jog cart with a bench seat, they draw, you got 8 kids that are in the grandstand that win, that are going to drive. You put a set of colors on them, you put a safety vest on them, you put a helmet on them, and you say, okay, just hang on, or maybe even a seatbelt, whatever. I don't think I put a seatbelt on them, and that's it. I think you'd have 10,000 kids there, and their parents. In the second week, they'd be even more, and then you make it 2 races, and then you have 30,000 people. Half of them would be kids. That's what I think. I probably didn't explain it as well as I should have, but something just like that. Participation. Because without participation, just like this guy said, they want to play the slots. They're not interested in the horse race. But if the guy would have told his girlfriend, where is that? If the guy would have told his girlfriend, I don't know where it is. I lost it. But if the guy would have said, okay, do you want to go hop on a race bike and race, or you want to play the slot machines? Every kid would say, I want to race. Every kid. So that's what I would do. I should explain it better. I should write it out so I could explain it better. But anyway.
I understand, Larry. I would go in the other direction. I'm looking for an adult audience, and I'm going to get that adult audience on Friday and Saturday nights with $2 beers, $2 hot dogs, some other food items.
They tried all of that. They tried the bands. They tried free food. They tried everything. Nothing works.
I can tell you.
Actually, Larry, Shenandoah's working very well with that. With they're hitting the college kids with the I think it's $2 beers and $1 hot dogs, and that seems to work. They have like the fish night. They've done a lot of things that have brought a lot of the college kids in, and they've really attracted a younger audience. And like Darryl Wood has done a great job over there promoting them.
Yeah, but Freddie, they tried that at Monmouth Park. Free this, free that, food, and the place is packed. The handle didn't go up, but the place got packed, and nobody that went there to eat the free stuff bought a horse. But if you make them participate and put them in a job,
you add that to it. But a lot of the tracks have been doing that, exactly what you're saying, and it really hasn't helped. Rosecroft was doing that. I was there. I watched the races, and I watched the amateurs sit in the double-seated carts. They didn't do a pari-mutuel race, but they did a exhibition race, and they did it in the double-seat jog carts, and they had 4 horses. They had to sign all types of papers for insurance issues. But I saw those races, and they didn't attract anyone. And possibly it's because nobody's putting any money into the marketing of it. Nobody's really out there. The only people they're marketing it to is our own sport. So you're not marketing it to the outside world. So if you're not marketing it, you're not going to bring anyone from the outside world that's interested. The whole marketing plan needs to be changed
Well,
drastically.
I'll tell you how. I'll tell you this, and I'm going to repeat myself. You know, if you're drowning in quicksand and there's nothing around, but somebody throws you a well done piece of spaghetti, you're going to grab for it because it's the last thing.
Not in harness racing, they're going to throw it right back at you.
there's no shot. So why not nothing? And everybody been trying this. They've been trying everything. Nothing's working. Nothing's working. Just like what this guy says, his girlfriend don't want to have nothing to do with racing.
Larry, listen to this statement over here. This David makes over here. $2 beers, lots of laughs. Beer is free at the casino.
Yeah, but even if the beer was free at the racetrack, it'd be the same like Monmouth Park tried it. You get 1,000 people there, all free, and the wind up is there's 100 accidents leaving the parking lot because everybody's drunk. The handle don't go up, and nobody's the least bit interested in buying a horse. But remember that big fat guy at Roosevelt that I forgot who? No, the guy who started his own training school, driving school or something. What the hell was this?
Lou Miller, what are you thinking of?
Who?
Lou Miller?
Lou Miller, yeah. Some of them kids that went they all got excited, made their father's parents buy them horses.
Yeah.
But
Lou Miller started that school with the horse that he won at he won the door prize at the SOA thing. A yearling or whatever it was, he started that whole school with that horse, and I don't think the horse ever raced. And he went until he was 13 years of age. I mean, that was like a bad deal winning that horse.
I would bet that and I would invest every penny that I could beg, borrow, and steal, and that I had. If somebody would just give me, I would even try it in Monticello. And just market it for 2 weeks and just do what I said. Even give whoever the person is 5% of the purse, all the way up to last. Then give them a winner's circle pitch, give them a film of the race, and I don't think it could miss. It can't miss. If you had bumper cars, if you built a big arena in the middle of nowhere with bumper cars and say it's free, just come and the place would be packed. So I know how many times did the owners come to the barn and say, could you take my kid around? Could you take my kid around? I'm sure.
Larry, I used to take kids for rides all the time. You did too. We all did.
Nothing else worked to get the grandstands to get more people interested. Nothing worked.
But
the only thing
also one of the major problems is that we moved our stables. We took them away from the racetracks and we moved them over to the training centers. Who the hell goes to a training center to watch the horses? No one. They used to come to the track all the time. You used to have the people in the grandstand. You also had the grooms staying at the track, and you had 1,200 grooms or whatever, 800 grooms living at Roosevelt Raceway. And what did they do in the evenings? They went to the track every night. A lot of things. Removing the barn areas was a dumb idea.
Terrible idea. The worst.
My idea is the worst.
No. Removing the backside.
Oh,
yep.
Okay. Jeffrey B says track owners don't give a shit at all. They don't care about bringing in crowds. I don't know. Let's see. Eric says, Larry, won't work. Today, kids focus on their screens, sports. I still think participation. Well, look, nothing else worked. Why not give it a shot?
Well, I'll tell you what would work. You tell everyone who shows up at the track, you're going to give them $100 to bet on the races, and you'll get a lot of people showing up.
Yeah, they'll put the 100 in their pocket and leave.
Well, put it in a voucher where they have to bet.
entertainment, entertainment, entertainment. Horse racing needs to find something that entertains people. They tried all of that. They believe me, they tried everything, and nothing worked. When they did it in Monticello, they had the Four Seas. They had the best entertainment in the world up there, and the place was packed. The handle didn't go up, but the place was packed.
Hey, Michael, what type of ideas do you have to promote the sport in a positive way? Let's move in a positive direction.
Well, again, I'm looking totally different from Larry. I'm looking at an adult playground. I'm looking at cheap beers. I'm looking at cheaper food on the apron. And while I'm talking about the apron, let me say something. And I was stunned to see this. We've all talked about how we can't get younger people to the track. Well, at Saratoga, and of course this is Saratoga, but at Saratoga, when there was 5 minutes to Belmont, the TV crew at Saratoga started at the end of the stretch, all the way at the top of the stretch, and all they were doing is taking a look at the people on the apron from the top of the stretch all the way past the wire, slowly. It took about 2 minutes, and I would say most of those people were in their 20s, possibly 30s, all well-dressed, and all the exact demographic you're looking for. Now, that is Saratoga during the Belmont, but they did it. A bunch of 20-year-old people thought it was a cool thing to go watch the Belmont. Now, the only way we can start is we have to start with our big races, but whoever did that at Saratoga, every person that runs a big race in horse racing should be calling over there and go, how did you guys do that? How did you guys get all those people to dress up and come out to the races? And of course, going to Saratoga is fairly expensive. It's not free to walk in, especially on Belmont Day. So there's people that pull it off. And
minimum ticket, $100 to get in.
The $2 beers, I could give you a dozen tracks, possibly 2 dozen, where you come on for the first race and the apron is loaded with people. Now, how does that look compared to an apron that's loaded with nobody? And you're going to tell me maybe those people don't bet a lot. Yeah, I'm with you. Maybe they don't bet a lot. But at some point, even if they don't bet a lot, what is it worth to show a crowded apron watching your people, an actual crowd reaction down the stretch? Is that worth anything? Because if you think that's worth nothing, you really should sell your track and get out of the business.
Yeah, well, if you look at the thoroughbreds, like with the Belmont, well, the Triple Crown races and their Breeders' Crown, they do fantastic. Their handles are, I mean, you're talking over $200 million on the Kentucky Derby handle. You're talking 150,000 people. We should be able to do similar.
But it took 30 years to get there. It's like when John Gaines thought of the Breeders' Cup. The first Breeders' Cup was at Hollywood Park. Do you know what the handle was? It was 17,000. 17 million, pardon me. $17 million. 17 million has grown to 150 million. The Derby is gone from the same 17 or 18 million to 300 million. Now, that didn't happen overnight. It happened with a plan, and you need someone resourceful to go, we're not trying to get to 300 million, but we just did 5.7 million at Woodbine. What if we could get that handle to 10 million? And if we could get it to 10 million, what if we could get it to 12 million, to 15 million? It starts there. And you have to have the dialogue, and you have to have the people that are ready to try something to turn you into a successful business.
You know, I'm going to take us back in history. In 1980, a horse named Landgrant, he won the Woodrow Wilson at the Meadowlands with Del Linsco driving him. That was the richest race in the world. It was a $2 million purse. It was higher than any thoroughbred race.
Higher than the Derby.
Higher than any race. It was the richest race in the world. That was a harness race that took place in 1980. Billy O'Donnell came back, I think, and he won a $2 million first race, and I think 2 years later. Could have been the next year, but I'm not 100% sure. What happened? All of a sudden, like the Thoroughbreds have $10 million, $20 million purse races, and we've gone backwards on our purses.
And with the exception of the Derby, what's the common thread on all the big races in Thoroughbreds? They're all classic division races.
But I'm also going to point out something. I'm going to point out something else from talking with a lot of Thoroughbred owners and stuff. You have more millionaire harness horses than you do Thoroughbred horses.
That can't possibly be true.
Better shot with the harness horses than the Thoroughbreds. You have very few of them, and Barry Irwin, I think, is the one who we had a long conversation with him about that. So
I don't see how, since the purses are about 6 times bigger at the Thoroughbreds.
Yeah, but you have very few that earn it. So,
but
and remember, they only race 7 times a year, 6 times a year. We race 30 times a year.
Yeah, you've got the I would be surprised. I would be very surprised. But I want to come back to Woodbine because what they did was incredible. When you consider that harness racing is down almost $90 million this year, and they handle $5.7 million on their big day. Their first race did, I think, $480,000. Their first race. Now that's like a Thoroughbred number. Now their last race was pushed up by the mandatory payout on the high five, but that last race did $1.5 million. So did they generate interest in wagering? Yeah, they absolutely did. We need to do a better job of generating interest in our wagering, and they're passing the baton to everybody else. Now, this week, there's not a lot going on at the Meadowlands as far as the stakes, but next week they've got an amazing card a week from Saturday that's got, and from that moment on, I think from that Saturday all the way through Hambletonian, you're going to see some great races. So obviously the Meadowlands hopefully can pick up where Woodbine left off and get us rolling together, and maybe we can get that some momentum going into the summer. That would be nice.
You see this Jeffrey B sent in, Belmont is going to be 60% suites. Who the hell is going to buy a suite to watch horse racing?
You're going to be shocked.
60% suites? Wow. Must be a big grandstand clubhouse.
Let me, I don't know if you're familiar with the author Michael Lewis, but Michael Lewis was doing a podcast about gambling. And mostly he was doing about gambling with young males because he's got a young male son. And what he found out, he could not believe that basically he went to a school and said, anybody that bets on sports, raise your hand, which was basically everyone. Now, when I went, I would frequent bars, still do. And when I was growing up, you'd never hear anything except on Sundays. People bet on football. But it is amazing. I walked into a bar like 3 days ago, and people are betting the NBA Finals in play. In other words, they're making bets during it. These are people who are sitting at a bar, not a sports book. When the Panthers were playing the Oilers, I think it was yesterday. I mean, people are sitting at the bar on their phones making bets on the games. This country is gambling crazy, and Michael Lewis thinks that what happened to the youth in this country is that their software has been adjusted, so now they're just in sync with gambling because between the dopamine and everything, just they want that action. So we'll see. I think that gambling is going to be the new national pastime. When I grew up and I was going to the track, my mother hated that I was going to the track. But now I think that you're going to the casino or you're going to the track or you're going to play poker. I think all those old social mores are gone. I think gambling's in the mainstream right now, and it's going to stay there.
Well, anyway, I wonder how I could. I wanted to show that race. I wonder. Let's see. Let's see if I could see it. Oh yeah. I'm gonna play this. Can you hear me all right, Michael and Freddie?
Yep.
I hear you.
Everybody listening saw this yesterday, or day before yesterday, but I'm gonna play it. Now, this was the last race I drove, and it happened to be at the Meadowlands. And watch this horse when I talk about horses with a natural gait, and but just picture one of these kids today driving this horse particular, leaning straight back with loose lines. Now watch him. Here it is. Here's the race, I think. Here it is. Can you see it?
I can see it.
All right.
And I actually know the winner. It's going to do me no good.
Okay.
And start of the Daily Double. Here they come.
Watch the horse on the turn.
Up and trotting, lukewarm favorite Saintly Image, that lone mare being hustled out of there, but it's Search Mission and Larry Rolla gunning to the front. He's a Blizzard from the outside, and on the rail, our Money Burner is showing alert trot into third. Around the first turn, it's Search Mission, Larry Rolla, and Search Mission trots on, takes the lead. Saintly Image, she settles in the second spot. A quick start there. Our Money Burner, a good start. Clear in third. Gap of 2 lengths. Whip urging for Ebba's Yankee fourth. He's a Blizzard, looks to slide in fifth. And parked out is Miracle Yankee trying to go up sixth. Then it's Streetwise Hall and Marianne's Diamond at the back. 28 4/5 for Search Mission up front here. 10-1 dictates the terms. Saintly Image, pocket ride. 2.5 lengths to Our Money Burner, third up the backside, heading towards the half, and Ebba's Yankee is an anxious fourth, half in, half out there. The Catman still parked with Miracle Yankee, inching up steadily, fifth on the outside, and Platino pulls with Ebba's Yankee. That'll give the Catman cover with Miracle Yankee fifth past the half. Then it's He's a Blizzard, jammed in sixth. Up on the outside comes Marianne's Diamond, follows the flow third over, followed by Streetwise Hall. Half was 58 2/5, a 29-3 stroll in that second quarter. Larry Rolla here rating Search Mission up front, getting his own way. Search Mission, rocky gated on those turns there, gets pressure from Ebba's Yankee on the outside. Ebba's Yankee comes calling and attacks Search Mission on the outside. Here comes Ebba's Yankee with Saintly Image in the box there. Miracle Yankee trying to rally from second over. Marianne's Diamond will fan out as well. Our Money Burner on the inside looks for room. 127 3 into the stretch. It's been Search Mission from the start. Game first over. Ebba's Yankee on the outside. Room at the rail for Saintly Image. Off cover comes Miracle Yankee in heavy traffic. Our Money Burner and He's a Blizzard is blocked as well. Search Mission almost home. Wire to wire. Search Mission does it. Search Mission shocks these over Ebba's Yankee.
Now you see him in the turns.
Well handled. I can tell you, the horse was a little steppy, right?
And that's what I mean. Back then, and that was in 2006. Now, back then, way before then, many trotters were like that, and you had to you had to just
Hold them together.
Hold them together. That's what you had to do, and that these kids today don't have. First of all, a horse like that would have never made it today. That was probably as fast as he was going to go. But you couldn't, no loose lines, no throwing the lines at him, no leaning straight back, and not too much lift on the. It was just different racing back then. And
but Larry, if you watch some of the races, when a horse does make a break nowadays, they can't get the horses back on stride. The horses run the whole mile, well, and it's really because they don't have any control over them.
Well, anyway, let me get rid of this thing. Remove from studio. Okay.
I wanted to say something also about we're talking about Woodbine as we're going to next week. Kentucky. Monday, they're going to have 15 $40,000 Kentucky Sire Stakes. 15 race card, all $40,000. Tuesday, I think they have four $150,000 Kentucky Sire Stakes for 4-year-olds, and there was over $1 million on the card on Tuesday. So, what I think on your show was it Schnitker said if he was young, he would move to Kentucky. I think everybody sees it now. Maybe 2 years ago, everybody didn't see it, but the thought of an 8-month circuit where you're going for money all 8 months, and then you're actually going to have some time at the end to decompress, go on vacation, go train some colts in Florida or North Carolina, like the Dancer and Houghton did. But this is just the next step, and I think it's marvelous. And the dual eligibility means that people can participate from all these other states, and hopefully it can help bring a resurgence to the industry. We need it.
Yep. Look, Kentucky has the best program out there from what I can see, the best program. And, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be breaking some yearlings this fall. And I'm really concentrating on Kentucky breds at this particular point. I have a really nice, really, really nice looking colt that's over at Hunterton Farm, Steve Stewart's place there. A King of the North colt, the King of the North colt that just looks fantastic from everything I can see. And I have another person that has basically said that they're going to throw in $500,000 to buy me some yearlings. And we'll see if this transpires and becomes reality. But that's where I'm at this particular point on that. And we're going to continue with, the harness racing alumni and everything that we're doing there. But I'm just going to throw into breaking some yearlings. I'm not going to go to the races with them. I'll turn those over to other trainers that handle that. But I do have something going on there. Larry knows about it. I told him about it, I think this morning or something. But
well, good for you, Freddie. Like I told you this morning, whoever
it's a little ways off, but I like that King of the North colt. I really, really like this one. I really like this one. This one could be a Hamiltonian winner. So
that's the Schnicker trotter, right?
Yeah, Schnickner had King of the North.
Yep.
This is a pretty nice colt.
Well, whoever the guy is that's going to put up the money's a lucky guy. I wish he was on the show because I'd tell him you're a lucky guy, and it's a good situation.
I can bring them on, but
he's a lucky guy. He's going to get a guy in you that knows what he's doing, that he can trust, that's going to give him a fair shake, and somebody that he can get on the telephone whenever he wants, and somebody that he can talk to about where, when, how, everything. So he's a lucky guy, and I'm glad that you're gonna go down to Kentucky. I'm sure that's where you're gonna go, right?
Right. Yeah, that's where you have to go. And so hey, we're going to be looking at yearlings. I'm concentrating on Kentucky breds and Kentucky eligibles, and that's the total direction.
Well, that's good. I think you're going to do very, very well. That's good. And that guy, I hope he's listening, because he's a lucky guy to get you out of retirement. He's a lucky guy. So good, and good luck to you.
Yeah, I might have to lose some weight, but
well, whatever. You don't have to lose any weight. How's your knee anyway, by the way?
It's still bothering me, but getting better. And so it's still bothering me. I figure about another month with it. So,
hey, Michael, somebody sent me this. It was very interesting. I wrote it down. At Kingland 2 Saturdays ago, the first 3 races were claiming races. Out of the first 3, 10 horses were claimed. 6 of the 10 horses that were claimed were winners. Oh, no, I'm sorry. 6 of the horses claimed, the claims were void. because of lameness. Three of the six that had six that were the claims were void because of lameness won the race.
Mhm.
It's unbelievable, and that's in the thoroughbreds. And they sent me this 2 years ago at Saratoga. Brown, Pletcher, and Rice each had a horse claimed in the same race. All three claims were void. So, and I guess Heise did that too. I don't know, but that's something.
Well, I mean, speaking from a betting perspective, I know Heise doesn't have it completely right, but everybody's got to understand how we got here. All right, in 2017, it was way before this, but in 2017, you had Jorge Navarro and his owner sitting watching their race, and when their horse won, the owner was jumping up and down, calling Navarro the juice man, right?
Right.
And saying, we get fat now, and now we win another 20 grand from the bookies. Life is great, right? And from that moment,
the other thing that they said in there, Michael, was we fuck everyone.
we did. That's what
That's
what Jindy said. He was the owner,
Yep.
who eventually sold everything. So anyway, we went from that moment to George Navarro was on the radar. But as long as George Navarro was on the radar, maybe some other people were on the radar also. And a lot of people that were involved with George Navarro went to jail. Some of those people had some hardest connections with Jorge Navarro. And then, of course, Service went to jail also, and Surik, and a lot of people. But I think it was about 30 people. The original was 29 indictments, and I think 2 were the following day or 2 days after that. I don't think there's one bettor in the country that thinks everything's solved. I think we've got some notorious people in the business right now that we need Heise or someone like Heise to start taking out the trash. Now, this is not going to be easy, but I do think that even without the help of certain people, that this is going to happen. So that's my only hope. And I have to tell you that a lot of people don't know this, but Heise's got a lot of power. And one of the big powerful things they have in their arsenal is simulcasting is a federal privilege. You do not get simulcasting because you own a racetrack. You get that privilege from the federal government. So if it gets to the point where Heise's got something highly workable, and some track says, well, and Texas has done this in the past, well, we're not going to let you run this. And Heise said, well, that's fine, because according to the Horse Racing Act of 1978, you're not going to follow, we're not giving you the privilege of simulcasting. So if you want to bet on Texas, you can go to the state of Texas and bet, because there will be no simulcasting in the United States outside of Texas. And if you're in the state of Texas, the only track you can bet on is the state of Texas, because you're not going to be allowed to bet across state lines. So they have an incredibly powerful tool there to fix this. But everybody agrees, and Freddie talked about it, and you talked about it, Larry. The whole country is talking about it. It's not perfect the way it is, but there will come a point when this has to happen, just like it did in baseball, when you had all those people on the stand after all those years, and Sosa was it, and McGuire and Bonds and everything, and everybody knew what was going on, and everybody denied everything. But guess what? After the Mitchell report came out in 2008, many of those following years, it wasn't 73 homers that was winning the home run title. It was like 36, 38. They fixed it, and eventually, we're going to have to fix it too.
Yep. It's going to happen, and I can tell you right now, the first state that's going to fall into suit with Heise is going to be Kentucky. They're going to lead the way
with harness racing.
Yep, 100%.
Let me say
And
this.
if you go back and you look at the medication rules and the thoroughbreds and harness racing in Kentucky, we race under the same rules. And
I'm not sure that HISA's the perfect vehicle here, and we can have all kinds of debate
they're
about
going to make some. There's some adjustments to be made, but that is the future, and they're definitely going to be the future. But there's a lot of resistance to it, but people will start falling in line. It's just like you're going to have to fall in line if you want to be in business. So, and they're not perfect, but they will work with you. I work with HISA all the time. Lisa is great to work with. Mark is great to work with. They're just they will work with us for harness racing. They're going to make the adjustments so it fits our sport. It's not going to be perfect, but the adjustments will be made, and it's going to take a couple of years to work everything out. It's not going to happen overnight. So.
And if I'm wrong, then I'll come back on this show 2 years or three years from now and go, I was wrong. But I will tell you that some of the desperados are on borrowed time here. That
and a lot of them are retiring, as you can see, because they know that. You have many trainers now retiring because they're finding out that without the edge, they can't compete. And so they're starting to retire. And you're going to see many of them. So, and hopefully it opens up a door for the trainers that have been out and on the outside, we're racing for third and fourth money, maybe even fifth money, to now come in and have a shot to go for the first money. So,
boy, I hope you're right. But if there was ever a Vegas line,
here comes Larry.
It's the only way the sport will survive, Larry. And I'll go to thoroughbreds too. And
here's a funny story. I'm gonna change the subject for a minute.
Sure.
Here's a funny story. I'm looking through these old programs from like 1964, and I look, and there's a horse named Jonathan that my father trains. And I look, and in the qualifiers, who's down to qualify the horse? Larry Rolla.
Where was that?
Roosevelt.
What year?
64.
That was the year I think Tannenbach threw me out of Yonkers.
I think it was before that, but and that was when Frank Muley was training for my dad. So
anyway, I wish you a lot of luck with the HISA thing. If I was younger, just like Snickter said, I'd be in Kentucky.
It's the only place. It's the place to go. It's like that's where the money is. And
I love
the program. I love the program that they have, or that they're paying, that they're doing the Sire Stake races for 2, 3, and 4-year-olds. I love it.
I think that in July, not next week, but the week after, I think the 2-year-old maidens are going for 25,000. I think the Open's going for 50. So when you start throwing around the purse money, and this is something I stole from Joe Anderson. Joe Anderson, when Illinois was really gone bad, said, you fix that number in the top right-hand corner of the program, everything gets fixed. And that's kind of true, that if you get that purse to a level where everybody wants to buy a horse, you have a whole different sport.
Yep.
If the government created HISA to help horse racing, why don't the government go back to the way it was prior to 1984, I think, and let them write off the price of the horse? Let it be a real good tax shelter.
Larry, I'm going to correct you on that a little bit. It was horsemen went to the government to create HISA because they couldn't handle the cheating. Some of your top people went to the government to form HISA, started the whole the HISA bill. I was there. I know all about it.
Why don't these same horsemen say, okay, you did what I asked you to do. It looks like it's working. Now, why don't you give us a tax incentive to get into the racehorse?
Because that's not HISA's part. HISA's part is only medication and
no,
safety.
I know, but it's the government.
They don't have anything else to do with anything else except medication.
But Congress created HISA, so go back to Congress instead of creating HISA. Create.
Well, then you have to go. Then you have to go create a whole new bill, and so that might be on the table by someone. But
I think it will be on the table. You could talk to your lobbyist friend.
I got a couple of lobbyist friends.
Yeah, because if you can accelerate the depreciation, obviously that's what Larry's talking about.
Yeah, I know exactly what he's talking about. And we go back to, I forget which presidency it was where we had all those tax incentives. I think it was the Reagan one, wasn't it, Larry?
I think it was too.
Yeah, and then I think when Carter came in, he changed it. If I'm not mistaken, I forget how it went, but one of them changed it. So.
Horse racing used to be the second best tax shelter in the country. The first was
depreciation,
owning cattle. That cattle was the first, horse racing was second. Today, cattle is first, horse racing is 100,000. So that's the next thing you got to do. Freddie, before you leave, get that done.
Okay.
Freddie, that's your job. Forget about this training stuff. That's your job now.
Okay, who's going to pay for it? It costs money to go to DC.
All right, guys.
And it costs money to get these bills passed.
We've been on for
almost 2 hours.
2 hours. That's enough. Something else you want to say, Michael? You want to talk about something?
I just very much enjoy talking with you guys, just like three guys at the bars. It's enlightening, and I think we learn from the past. So I would like to see some of these things that we talked about today enter into the dialogue on how to make things better. And certainly, if I had to lean on one thing, it's these guys that are racing off the rail. I just need to get that lead horse within 4 feet of the rail.
And change and get New Jersey to go with the Charlie May rule. I never heard of such a thing.
But one of the things that I saw, Larry, that I started laughing. I was watching a race, and the guy is in front, the horse in back of him. The horse's nose is over the guy's shoulder and touching his belly, and the horse's knees is hitting the guy in the back. I mean, I sat there like 20 years ago. The driver of that horse would have gotten a lifetime suspension.
Well,
I want to say one more thing. Obviously, we're in a star business where the drivers are the stars, but wasn't it a little refreshing to see $1 million race with Ronnie Wren and Braxton Boyd finishing 1-2? Considering how many good horses do you think Ronnie Wren drove, but when it was time to go for the money, somebody else got the drive, and he finally got the drive on $1 million race and came through.
Oh,
yep.
Good for him.
Good. Congratulations to him, and good for him.
That's another thing. I wonder. I get asked this a lot, and I really don't. I really don't know how to answer, but I better not say this. I don't want to get nobody in trouble. Well, one of the questions, and I won't go into what I was just going to say, but is what percentage of it is the horse and what percentage of it is the driver? Does the driver?
Carmine Abatello already said that a long time ago.
What did he say?
He basically said it's 10% driver, 25% luck, and the rest of the horse.
So if you put, let's say a driver that's that's racing at the Meadowlands. I won't mention any names, but is not in the driver's standings. But any one of them drivers that were racing there were good. And you put them on all of John Campbell's horses, would they have had the same win record with somebody else driving? So if what Carmine Abatello says is true, that the horse is 90%, that means any decent driver.
No, he didn't say 90%. He said 10% driver, and it was like 25% luck, and the rest of the horse. He said luck played a lot into it. Luck played into a lot of it.
Well,
and experience, and how to handle the horse, and dealing with the pressure, dealing with adverse situations.
I could name 10 guys through the years that nobody even. Well, you probably.
I know exactly what you're going to say. I can name.
You never hear of them. They go completely nameless, but they had the same talent as some of the Hall of Famers. But they
just never got the breaks on the horses.
They never got that chance. But I
mean, you can pull different people. Like if you put them behind the same horses. Well, I'll just use Hervé. If you put them down behind the same horses as Hervé, they may not win with all the horses that he won with, but they probably would win with some other horses that he didn't win with, and it would all balance out to about the same. And there's different degrees in drivers, and I'm talking about your good drivers. I'm not talking about your beginners or your drivers that are just starting, or your drivers. There are some drivers I've driven against that they didn't know how to handle a horse. You've raced against them too, Larry, and they didn't understand how racing works. That's probably how many drivers that you race against and never looked at the board when they were scoring down to see who was being bet on. So, I mean,
if you took the 10 leading drivers, usually they have the 10 top drivers at the racetrack. If you took the second 10 and just reverse, give the second 10 the same horses that the first 10 were driving, I think that
you have a reverse.
Yeah, you'd have a reverse.
And also remember, like when you're hot as a driver and you're winning races, you get the best horses to race.
Yeah.
And you can tell. We'll use John Campbell as a good example. When John was racing and at the top of his game, he's getting the best horses to race. As he got older, all of a sudden he was getting the 20-1 shots, the 80-1 shots, the 30-1 shots, and his stats went down. And that's pretty much when he decided to quit, because he wasn't getting the live horses anymore. I saw that with so many top drivers growing up, where all of a sudden they're hot, they're doing great, they're top drivers, and all of a sudden the younger guys are coming in and replacing the older guys, and they start getting the long shots to drive, not the best horses anymore.
Well, there's a couple of guys that really impressed me, and I'd be in races with them, and just when you're right in the battle with them, you could really tell by their actions and how they handle themselves and everything. And there's a couple of guys. Dave Miller is one of them. I mean, just fearless guys with great sense of pace, and just a lot of talent. And there's probably 10 guys at the Meadowlands like that. And but I guess the cream rises to the top. But there's a lot of guys like that guy. What the hell's his name? That wind up going up to Buffalo. And when asked why he went up to Buffalo, because he's a great driver. What's his name? The kid that went up to Buffalo from the Meadowlands. and he says because he gets fourth, fifth, sixth best horses in the race. But he's a great driver. Now he's leading driver in Buffalo. What the hell's his name? I raced with his father.
Beckwith?
Beckwith or
Oh no! What the hell's
Merton or one of those kids?
What'd you just say?
Merton.
No.
At first, I thought you were talking about Jimmy Morrow.
Morrow, yeah, Jimmy Morrow. Yeah.
I mean, okay, he's not a kid.
I call everybody.
To Larry, he's a kid.
I raced with his father. His father's my age. To me, he's a kid, but the kid's extremely talented.
Oh yeah.
And I was standing right next to him one day when I think somebody said, "Why are you going back to Buffalo?" He says, "I'm driving every race 10-1 shots, 10-1 shot."
Yeah.
The sheet comes out, four horses Campbell on, 4 horses O'Donnell on, and then I'm on one of the other ones, you know. So he's and there's a couple of them, but the guys who stuck it out, like Miller, really impressed me. David Miller.
Oh, well, look at Brian Sears when he was racing at the Meadows. He was in Dave Pavone's shadow. And so when he got the opening, I forget the reason. I think there were some suspensions or an accident, some top drivers out, and he came down to the Meadowlands, and that really made him. That's what made Brian Sears, and that's where he was able to shine. And he's a great talent, great driver, but up in the Meadows, he wasn't getting the top horses to drive.
Well, that's the problem.
And you know, the horse is your power. So. And when you drive good horses, it makes you drive your bad horses better too.
Yeah, all these guys, I see the on the comments, they all said Jimmy Morrell. Yep. Eric, great drivers earn the right to drive the best horses. You're right. But what do you do when you get 8 drivers, 10 drivers that are in? How do you separate them? Everybody asks me, who are your top 3 drivers? It's tough. How do you separate a Billy O'Donnell from a John Campbell? How do you separate John Campbell from Dave Miller?
Let's look at Billy. I wish Billy was on the show right now. You know, Billy, when he started out, he started driving late in his career. He basically was a trainer, and he went down to Saratoga. And I don't know if you guys know this story, but Jim Doherty and Teddy Wing, when he was going down there, he's going to drive, and he was really not a driver. So when they told him, they said, anyone asks you how many wins you had, tell them 500. And so basically, he started driving down at Saratoga, and everyone thought that he had won like 500 races already. And 500 races back then was a bigger deal than it is nowadays. But all of a sudden, you know, he wins 6 races on one card, and from there, he basically moved his operation down to the Meadowlands and became a top driver. And what really put him over the top was when Buddy Gilmore put him down to drive all his horses when Buddy was out of town.
Yeah,
and that helped. That helped Billy get started.
Well, I don't know how you separate Dave Miller and Campbell and O'Donnell and LeChance and Ron Pierce.
You don't, Larry. You don't. And throw like Peter Houghton in there, or Insco, or Schulte. I mean, you can go right down the line.
Mosier,
Benny Webster,
Hervé. About 20 years ago at the Meadowlands, 20 years ago at the Meadowlands, a little longer perhaps, there was a year where Luke Ouellette was the only guy that was batting 300. And of course, he had Peter Pan, and he was driving for Bill Robinson. And I think Campbell was 268 at the Meadowlands. Everybody else was like 220 and under. And all those people who were 220 and under ended up in the Hall of Fame. Pierce, Moiseev, Yannick, I think Dave Miller was there. I think Sears was starting there. Camp Manzi was there. I mean, none of these guys could win, you know, at any – it was just so hard because you had 10 of the best 11 or 12 drivers at one place. You know, and you all had to drive against – you all had to outfox the greatest drivers. You know, and every once in a while, the drivers' colonies get like that, and hopefully maybe we're headed to something, because if we get 3 or 4 of these young drivers that can pop through, and become part of the Meadowlands regular core, it's going to make things a lot more lively over there.
I just think I don't think I know that everybody that's out there that goes out on a racetrack, they got to have a lot of guts, a lot of heart, and they're basically fearless with a lot of talent. And them are the guys that wind up staying. And there's a lot of guys that wanted to do it that they get in one wreck or something and they pack it in, or they just realize that they just don't have it. But the guys that are there, the top are probably everybody that races at the Meadowlands is just really good, really great. And you could switch horses, do whatever and that's why I remember when that kid Walter Case came down, they thought he was going to be the leading guy, and he was just another driver in the best driving colony that there is in the history of the world. Mm-hmm. And not that he wasn't, he was great, but he was in with greats, so he didn't dominate. And once once everybody recognized that there were more than 1 or 2 guys that were great, and they start getting these mounts, it's safe to say that the top 10 guys at the Meadowlands are probably the best 10 in the country, in the world.
Yeah.
So that's it. I'm tired. I'm going to go have a banana split now. I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to have a banana split with Haagen-Dazs ice cream and some crushed nuts, a little whipped cream, and that's it. Michael, you want to say something else, Mike? Anything else?
Yeah, pick 5 carryover at Meadowlands tomorrow. $20,000 carryover should be $150,000 or $200,000. $600,000 in purses at Oak Grove Monday, $1 million at Oak Grove Tuesday, and starting every Saturday from the 28th of June, the Meadowlands will have spectacular Saturday cards, and please support the Grand Circuit. It's important.
Absolutely.
Okay, and Freddie, good luck to you. I'm glad. Right. I'm glad that conversation we had today. That was good. It was good hearing it, and I wish you a lot of luck. And I hope your owner listens to this podcast and what I said, that he's a lucky guy to have you come out of retirement to do what you're doing for him. Michael, you're the brains of this whole operation. Whenever we need any information, you're the guy. I wish you would come on more. So I wish Freddie would have you on more. He's the one that
I will do so.
Yeah,
I haven't even distributed our show yet today. It premiered on your show tonight because I just didn't have time to do the work to get it out today. So,
I mean, not only he knows everything and he remembers everything and he has all good information, and he's some guy that you should bring on every Thursday, or don't let him. We missed him, and there's a couple of guys say, where's Michael? In fact, I got a phone call 2 weeks ago. Where's that guy Michael? He was the only guy, compared to me. When I'm on here alone, I'm a dead man. Anyway, Michael, thanks for coming on. And Freddie, I'll talk to you. Michael, I'll talk to you. And that's it. Right. I'm going to get a banana split.
Thank you for listening, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening. Good night, everyone.
Okay. Good night, everyone. Thank you for watching.